Well, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone who's turned up live and who will continue to turn up live. And welcome to those who are watching this recording. Axel and I are very grateful to welcome you here for this masterclass, this session. And forgive me as I have to keep inviting or allowing people in as we go. Um, Here's the crux, everyone. We have discovered the cure for the corporate pandemic of low engagement, right? This thing that has been going on in the world of business for the last 4 or 5 years, which is now costing $8.9 trillion a year. We found the cure for it. The irony being with this cure is that when it's applied, it supercharges human energy. It supercharges human energy and it drives performance. And this code, if you like, is what we're here to share with you today. Um, so, Axel, would you like to introduce yourself and I'll follow suit?
With pleasure. Bonjour, everyone. I'm Axel Ferrerol, co-founder of Humanness. In a nutshell, spent the last 28 years in large international IT corporations. So I am a pure product of business school from France, at least on the outside. Spent lots of different roles from sales to operations to innovation and transformation. And my passion here in the IT space was the speed at which those organizations are moving and evolving, and the complexity of the problem we are solving and helping customers solve. I like complexity. That's where my true passion comes from. I guess as long as I remember, when I was 17 around, I started having a sensation that I need to investigate the missing link between science on the one hand and ancient tradition, as if I needed to find a link between the visible and the invisible. This has come as an intuition, as a quest, and since then I have investigated many fascinating areas of research, getting into astrophysics, quantum physics, looking into ancient traditions, of course, neuroscience, and having made many, many experiences that opened me to a larger perception of how things are happening. But at the end of the day, it boiled down to one thing: energy. So when I, a few months ago, decided to possibly leave my current company, within which I'm working for the last 18 years, I actually was wondering what to do. And I happened to meet Quinn. And Quinn told me, well, I have set up Humanness. And we are looking for founders and people who think like us. And I was like, Quinn, I'm your man. Here I go. I'm on. And I've decided to leave my company currently. And I'm now a young entrepreneur onboarding Humanness.
And I know, yeah, thank you, Axel. The dynamic of this masterclass is going to be fairly fluid. We have lots of stuff to show you, but my path was less conventional. I started my first agency at 18. I went on to work with multinational organizations around the world for 16 years. The pursuit of money, property, and prestige left me spiritually bankrupt. Actually, it left me deeply unhappy, even with all of the accolades that I had achieved. And so 6 years ago, I completely reinvented my journey. I went off to university and studied Japanese art and Taoism and Buddhism and the history of India. And on this journey, I learned how to live. I learned what actually made me happy as a person. And so a big part of what Humanness is about restoring human qualities to the heart of business. So the code that we've cracked, this idea around energy, the things we're going to dive into right now and share with you, as well as give away a load of free stuff at the end for absolutely no requirement on your part at all, is all anchored in that deeply, deeply, profoundly beautiful human vision of restoring human qualities to the day-to-day of business. So without further ado, let us crack on. Energy. There's three things that we hope you take away from this. First of all, what is human energy? Two, how does it impact business? And three, how can you supercharge it?
By the
Brother?
way, on this one, if you have any questions during the course of the session, feel free to put them on the chat, and we will try to spend some time at the end of the session to respond to them. So feel free to ask. Quinn, we are energy. That's our belief. Now, I don't believe you on the call have to believe us, right? We are energy is a very strong stick in the ground, but maybe you might want to hear from Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton is a scientist, a biologist. He actually had a very profound impact on the research on stem cells and how to clone stem cells. And he was one of the pioneers who set the foundation for what is now called epigenetics, which is a brand new space in biology. So let's listen to Bruce and what he says about humans and energy.
Did you ever wonder if there's anything more to the human than this physical body that we have? Well, it's real interesting because if we go back in history, they talk about something called spirit and energy and an invisible force that seems to be controlling who and what we really are. Quantum physics emphasizes that the universe is not really split into two realms, a material realm and an energetic realm. Quantum physics reveals that everything is made out of energy. What we perceive as matter is actually an illusion of energy and light, that there is nothing physical. You know, what do you mean? I say, well, first of all, a very simple fact. When physicists started to take the atom apart and find there were things inside such as protons, neutrons, and electrons, then they say, yeah, but what are those things made out of? Then they got down to smaller things like quarks, and then I say, yeah, but what were they made out of? And ultimately what physicists recognized was at the fundamental core of an atom, there is nothing material at all. It's an energy vortex. It's a powerful energy field, and that all atoms are these energy fields. And the significance about that is, well, atoms make up humans. And so by definition, we perceive ourselves as physical structures, but according to quantum physics, we're energy vortices.
So in summary, what Bruce is saying and what quantum physics is showing is that we are made of atoms, and atoms is energy, so we are made of energy. And actually, we are made of 10 to the power 27 atoms. We are an amazing energy structure. So the question we ask is, what do we do with those energies? What happens for us as humans on a daily basis? And how do we manage that energy? On the next slide, please. Here we go. If you look at energy from a human perspective and the way you make sense of that, there are 4 forms of energy that you feel through the day. The first one is emotional. Emotional is the very visceral reaction you have within your body, the way your body acts and reacts, what you sense, right? This emotional aspect is so important because the emotions actually inspire your thinking, right? So this intellectual energy, your ability to think and solve problems, is actually influenced by the emotion. Now, the way you think informs the way you act, obviously on a daily basis, in your day-to-day work. And the way you act impact and influence the way you relate to others. As you're working, collaborating, cooperating, you know, all this is influenced by the way the energy flow within your structure, within your being. From the emotion to the thinking, to the doing, to the relating. This is how this energy that goes through you, through your atoms, on a microsecond basis, is actually turned into your consciousness, into your awareness. And when we talk about human energy, we refer back to those 4 types of energy: emotional, intellectual, physical, and relational. Now, there is another one, which is slightly different, that I call intentional energy. But you, Quinn, have a different way to present that. You usually talk about purpose.
Well, remember, the whole of this masterclass is about unlocking that latent energy that's within us. So purpose is not an action, it's a state of being. Purpose is a form of energy. Purpose is probably the most misunderstood word around at the moment. And it was really bastardized by marketing, by organizations over the last 4 or 5 years, where purpose was seen as this thing that you had to do, this alignment you had to do to somehow have meaning. So people are consistently confused that purpose is some form of action. It's not. It is actually a state of being. One's purpose, one's individual purpose, doesn't actually change. It is a North Star. It's a guiding compass. It's a sat nav, if you like. It's a direction that we go in. So for me, my purpose is to love and be loved. right? That's not a doing thing. That is how I try to align myself to the feeling. So when I wake up in the morning, and I go, well, how am I going to treat my girlfriend today? How am I going to treat my children? How am I going to treat my dog? How am I going to interact with clients or friends or that person who cuts me off in the road? If my purpose is to give and receive love, then that has a direct impact on how I interact with the world around me. And you can imagine how that would then influence other people and therefore my experience with the world. The energetic difference of aligning myself to that purpose versus the energetic difference of if my state of mind was I'm a victim, I'm under attack, I'm jealous, I don't have enough, or whatever it is, those two energetic states are very, very different. I mean, would you agree, Axel? Is that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. State of being it is. And that's an amazing source of energy. It's a source of energy, by the way, which is at the core of any organizations when the founders decide to create an organization. Can you tell us more, Quinn, about your experience about the founder myth?
Yeah, and if there's any found company business founders on this or listening to the recording, then you'll be able to relate to this. When Henry Ford or Kellogg's or Steve Jobs or whoever, Bill Gates, when they founded these great businesses, they didn't found them with the idea of, shareholder return being the purpose. Right? It wasn't okay, I'm gonna launch this empire so that I can deliver the best quarterly profits the world has ever seen. There was a spark within them. There was an energy that gave birth to that business. Um, Anyone who started a business will know how difficult it is to get it alive. That energy is it's like a life force energy, but practically speaking, it's the mythology of the organization. So as a company grows, whether it's Ford or whether it's a recent startup, that mythology of the energy that the founder possessed to create the organization is a very, very powerful source of energy that often gets lost and forgotten, and whether it's from growing too big too quickly, whether it's through mergers and acquisitions, whether it's from huge significant layoffs, the mythology gets lost. And when it gets lost, the disconnect from that energy source gets lost too. More on that later.
And on this one, Quinn, can you tell us a little bit about your own story? And as Duncan is with us on the call, what you and Duncan have discovered. What was your mythology and how did you come up to disclose or discover some of the mystery from ancient traditions?
Well, some of what we're going to share with you today is going to be around the practices that can be applied in order to drive energy, to supercharge the human energy. Where did a lot of those experiences come from? For me, was when my father and I were running a branding and an advertising consultancy, and we were using very ancient human practices, shamanic techniques, ceremony, ritual, tribal things, but very ancient human things, not religious things. I wouldn't even say they were spiritual things, just ancient human practice that actually is still practiced by many, many people today. But what we found in this in using these practices to unlock creativity, because that's what we were using it for, was to unlock creativity within brands, with their agencies and with ourselves, was that profound energetic impacts were happening. There were big emotional releases. People were finding purpose and passion that they'd never experienced before. And so part of the mythology of what we're doing today with humanness is about, stems from the discovery of these ancient ceremonies and practices. But what was profound was how it then led me to go, well, why? Why are these ancient practices having such a profound impact on the human beings who experience them? So we investigated the science, and we weren't the first people to do it. But what was happening was people's brain waves were changing. Beta, alpha, theta, delta, whether you are familiar with this stuff or not, you don't need to be a neuroscientist to understand These are just normal states of us as human beings being awake. Delta is when we're sleeping generally, and beta is when we're in the office functioning. The problem today is that we end up in high beta. High beta is where we have stress, cortisol, burnout. High beta is very useful as a human being when we're under attack. It's not something that we can sustain being in, but this is what the world is generally stuck in. This is why there are so many problems around burnout and stress and low engagement, is because we're stuck in this place of fear, in this high beta brainwave state. What we found out, what we learned through our experiences was that we could move people from beta to alpha and theta. Now, alpha is about creativity and flow, and theta is almost dreamlike in its own way. So when we can learn to move our energy from a place of high stress and fear to a place of flow and creativity, magical things can happen.
Mm. So maybe, Quinn, we might invite everyone here listening to experience a little bit of that magic. And during 3 minutes, what we invite you to do, if you can make the space now in your surroundings, for 3 minutes, we invite you to listen to that drum that will appear on screen. There is a fire, so you can keep your eyes open if you wish, and just look at the flames, or you might decide to switch to close your eyes and just focus on the sound. Now, 3 minutes, listen to the music, just relax into the music, look at the flame, and we talk again in 3 minutes. So that was 3 minutes of shamanic experience. Now, let me tell you the science behind what you've done. What the shaman and all ancient traditions have discovered, without science to prove it, was that when you have a rhythmic beat repeating itself, after a certain period of time, you start relaxing. It might even induce a state of trance. From a neuroscientific perspective, we call that entrainment. What the neuroscientists have identified is that the brain responds very quickly and very well to rhythmic impulses. And that entrainment usually happens after 6 or 7 minutes. After 6 or 7 minutes, the brain waves are shifting. And depending on the frequency that you're listening to, that you're sounding around, your brain will alter the frequency of the brain waves. And that's what started happening with you here. Just listening in and getting your breathing also in sync with that, you started modulating your brainwave patterns into a much more relaxed state, right? And that's something that we do at Humanness. It's a technique we use in order to get you in a different state of being, in a much more creative, much more relaxed, much more aligned way of thinking. That's called entrainment.
Thank you, Axel. So, again, so another phase of inner human energy is, which is deeply aligned to purpose, is around the hero's journey. And again, this is ancient human stuff. Some of you may or may not be familiar. A guy called Joseph Campbell wrote a famous book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, basically identifying how every myth, every culture, every religion, tribal stories around the world effectively follow the same plot, the same story. Why? Because it's part of what makes us human beings. You know, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, the fundamental format of a call to action, a refusal of the call, entering the cave, slaying the dragon, and then returning back home with the treasure. This narrative lives deep, deep, deep within us. But what does that mean? You know, how do we use that? Well, if we can be in tune with our own purpose and we can be aware that we are living out our own heroes' journeys, it gives us a sense of courage, a sense of strength, again, a very, very powerful energy to keep moving, to go above and beyond, to face fears. You know, courageousness and innovation are very closely linked. You know, in order to truly create something new, one must step into the unknown, and you can't do that without bravery. So, you know, my hero's journey, you know, it took me, you know, my mother left when I was 11, right? I spent the next 16 years thinking I was unlovable. I was not good enough. So I solved that by doing two things: high achieving and alcohol and various other things that would change how I felt. Those two ways, high achieving and substances, that's not a sustainable way to live one's life. So it led me to a fundamental crash, a spiritual bankruptcy. But in that darkness, I was reborn. I got to enter a world of recovery. I got to enter education. I got to enter all sorts of other things that allowed me to become the man I am today, that allowed me to meet Axel, to create Humanness. All of this is part of my story that could not have happened if I hadn't faced these fears and slayed these dragons. But when one can be in tune with their purpose in the hero's journey, it can be incredibly galvanizing. Is there anything I've forgotten there, Axel?
No, I'm just smiling because I'm looking at the first 3 phases and I'm thinking about my own journey. In June last year, I decided to leave SAP, the company I'm working with. So the call to action was there. But then I spent so many bad nights waking up at 3 in the morning, telling myself, how am I going to make so much money? How can I, you know, sustain my standard way of living? And I couldn't sleep. And to the point where I started refusing the course. It's ridiculous. Stay with SAP 15 years ago, retire, enjoy life. But when I actually happened to decide that, and I was happy with that decision, you guys called me. Yeah, Quinn, you called me. It was 2 in the afternoon. Say, Axel, we are Humanness. We got your name through the head of happiness officer at SAP in Barcelona. Now, I don't know how we came to find you, but here we go. And I said, whoa, okay. You are the one I was waiting for such a long time. And you were the supernatural mentor coming in saying, hey guys, there is a different path. And I accepted the path. And that was quite amazing because when I see this, that's exactly how it played out for me. And now I believe I'm crossing the threshold with that masterclass where I'm ready to speak up my truth. What I've been researching for 30 years, what I know will help, leadership goes towards more conscious leadership and organization towards more conscious organizations. And I guess we need that today. So I'm just saying this is an incredible source of energy, this intentional energy, your intention that you have within you, this quest, this purpose is extremely powerful. And that's what organizations want to tap into because that's where they can get most of your motivation and enthusiasm. So this is important. Yeah. Resonance. Reflecting about this, right? What we realize is that when you get all your energy, right, emotional and intellectual, and actionable, physical, and relational, and you put that in resonance with the founder myth, so this intentional energy of the organization within which you operate and you work into, and you put that also in alignment with your own hero's journey, you reach that point of resonance where energy is multiplied. And that is only when you are in resonance that that energy can multiply. And that is so important. It's a physical thing. When you feel energized, when you feel that purpose and this power, it's something extremely physical. And Quinn, maybe we can show what resonance is all about from a physics perspective. So look at this very simple experiment. Imagine on the left is your organization resonance, right? Frequency, 512 hertz. But you, through your hero's journey, resonate at 440. If you're not aligned with the frequency of the organization, nothing happens to you. You're not fed by additional information. Now, look at that. The 512 hertz is vibrating at a certain level. You vibrate at a different one. There is no transfer of energy. The ball is not moving. You're not resonating. While if the company or the organization within which you operate, through its culture, through its value, leadership system, is aligned with your operating system, if you have the same resonant frequency, you absorb that energy and that gets everything around you in motion. Do not underestimate the power of multiplication of energy that happens when resonance takes place. It's quite magical. It's physical. So when you sense that you're aligned with the corporation, with the company, with the organization, when you align with the values, with the culture, with the original founder myth, what happens physically is a multiplication of the energy available to you to do, perform, act, create, innovate. And that's what is so important. That's what we are looking at very closely at humanness, that notion of resonance.
And I'd like to just add to anyone who's ready to sort of hear this, because some people might not be, that first video around, Dr. Lipton talking about that we are energy, right? Now, if we sort of suspend our belief and we say, okay, sure, we are made up of energy. And if we can see that frequencies through this demonstration have a direct impact on physical matter, right? If we can see that, and if we can see that the same frequency make something happen in a certain way with physical matter, then we can make the leap, I suppose, with a little bit of faith, that when we walk into an office or we're working with a team, and we all know this, we all know what it feels like to walk into a room and whether the energy is good or bad. Are people afraid or are they happy? It's not just based on what we see. We feel something. We can never really say what it is. But if based on what we're seeing here, that there is that frequency, things we don't see, can have a direct impact on the physical form, well, then we could suspend our belief and say, well, hold on a second. This idea of human energy is worth exploring.
Fully aligned. Now, there is something else, Quinn and team here. There is the notion of coherence. Now, imagine that your resonance is okay. You're aligned with the founder vision. You're aligned with the values and the mission statement of the organization. You're fully in sync with that. You're in resonance. So your energy is pumped up. Now, that energy has to be used, into bracket, channeled in a meaningful way. You want to sense that what you bring, right, on a daily basis in your action, in your work, is actually meaning something and is valued by the system. That's where coherence comes into play. An organization is a very complex structure. And we talk about structure here because we talk about the vision, we talk about the founder myth, we talk about the structure, the operations, we talk about the organizational structure and roles, we talk about all the processes and the bureaucracy that is behind it. And all that should be aligned in such a way that there is a sense of fluidity and a sense of reward for the energy that is spent. Otherwise, what you have the feeling is that your energy is lost. Let me take just one basic example. Imagine that you're fully charged, fully motivated, you want to move forward on an important project. Yet, in order to move forward, you need to start creating a ticket because you need to raise for something, and to have that something done, you need to raise a ticket, and the ticket has to be approved by your manager and maybe by your manager. But your manager is not here, and therefore it takes a week for you to get approval. What happens? Even though you're supercharged, you're resonant, you're fully motivated to move on, nothing happens. There is incoherence within the system, and the energy cannot flow. It cannot fluidly move towards fruition. And you don't sense that what you're doing is actually accepted or recognized or rewarded because you need to go through all those bureaucracy and processes. And believe me, bureaucracy costs $1 trillion across the organization and the business at the moment in the economy. And incoherence comes from there. Not only do you need resonance, you also need coherence when all the parts of the structure are working in harmony. And that's something that we also look at very closely. How does the various parts of the organization, you, your team, the various departments collaborate and work so that the energy is moving around in a fluid motion? And by the way, when we talk about coherence, of course, there is coherence within the structure, but there is also coherence within yourself. So let's do a little bit of an exercise here, if you don't mind, or an experience. What science has demonstrated is that we have 3 neuronal systems, not one, not only the brain, but there is the heart and there is the gut. So 3 neuronal systems. The 3 systems interact at all times. Even though we focus on the brain, it's actually interacting with the heart and with the guts at all times. Now, the HeartMath Institute in the US has spent lots and lots of time working on the notion of inner coherence, the coherence especially between the brain and the heart. And what we are suggesting that you do now to work on your inner coherence so that you can establish a specific way of feeling is to start breathing. And we invite you to do a 3-minute breathing exercise called heart coherence breathing. And maybe, Quinn, you can just launch the video. I just pitch it as we move along. So if you don't mind, spend 3 minutes. Don't have to, yeah, but please, if you want to play the game, do it. You follow that ball going up and down. It's based on a 6-second rhythm. 6 seconds is important. It's a biological rhythm. So when the ball goes down, you exhale. You can do it through the nose or through the mouth as you wish. And when the ball goes up, you inhale 6 seconds. I still recommend you inhale through the nose and you exhale through the mouth as if you would gently blow on a candle. Okay? And just do that for 2-3 minutes. We talk again soon. So thank you for doing the experience with us. You might notice that while you go through that exercise, you start relaxing. Actually, from a chemical perspective, there are thousands of very positive chemical reactions taking place within your system, within your body, especially at the nervous system level, that can soothe out all your being and the nervousness behind it. So it's recommended to do this during 5 minutes on average, if possible, 2-3 times a day. And this has massive impact on your health, on your well-being, on your mental state. So feel free to use it without moderation. It's a very good practice to get inner coherence. Now, the notion of flow is something that we spend time discussing with Quinn and with our customers. When you have that resonance, when you align with the organization you're working with, when things are coherent and the energy flows freely, you reach a level of flow. You feel that resonance is supercharged. You sense that the way you collaborate start bringing value and it builds on each other as a multiplication factor. And that motivates you big time to continue doing it. And this notion is really what everyone refers to in leadership or management literature as the flow. So state of flow, right? And that's something, Quinn, that we started looking at, especially we get that in sport very much, right? In the area of the sprint, for instance, when you ask the sprinters how they prepare, they try to find that balance between relaxation and tension, so that at the moment of the explosion, when they hear the starter kick, all the energy within the system, within the structure, is ready to be used. What you see here within an individual is what happens within an organization, right? It's as if we are the cells within the human body, and the body is the organization. And there is that very subtle balance between tension and relaxation. This notion of flow where performance is optimal, right? The peak performance, as we name it. It's a very special feeling of resonance and coherence within the structure. That's what we teach and train sports people for. It's not something that is well known within organizations, because you need to focus on resonance and you need to focus on coherence to find that balance, to find that point, and that's where you can win the race. So all in all, to summarize on this, what we have found out is that we as human beings, we as professionals and leaders, we are energy at work. That's who we are. That's what we do.
And this is everything. This is the whole point. And you know, we've only got a few slides left, but this is the culmination. When you combine all of these different elements, the individual's clarity of purpose aligned to the purpose of the business, and then you get a business unit or a team or a whole company resonating on that same mission, that same energetic purpose, and you have coherence between teams, between departments, between goals, the energy that is created. And this is the thing, the leap of faith we're asking for people to understand a little bit here. What we're trying to demonstrate through them feeling it themselves is that the energy is a real thing. The energy created by a group of people in alignment, right? That is a very powerful force. And the businesses that achieve this, their profitability, their productivity, their creativity through the roof, staff attrition non-existent, because the energy, the purpose of being in that organization supersedes any conventional reason to stay. And So I mean, I don't know, Axel, is there something you want to add to that, or move on?
What I would like to add to that is that you don't reach engagement by adding stuff. What I see again and again and again, and I've been going through years of transformation in large corporations, we believe we solve engagement problem through a different process or a different program. It's not really the problem. Problem is resonance. It's not adding new training that will solve it or modifying the roles that might impact coherence, but not resonance. So engagement is something of a different nature. It is deeply energetic. Okay? So the point is not to add new stuff. We don't suggest here you add anything. You just approach the situation so that you create the environment where resonance can take place, where the frequency can align. It's not a question of adding processes in here or tools or technology. It's something totally different. And that's how we speak about things. We talk about engagement and alignment. And here we talk, engagement refers to this notion of resonance. Alignment refers to the notion of coherence. When you get that energy multiplied by everyone within the organization in alignment with your purpose, and when you get the alignment through the ability to collaborate in a smooth and fluid way, do you reach that flow? And as Quinn said, the flow drives the performance, right? So there is no such thing as performance. There is such thing as alignment and engagement, creating flow that drives performance. But that's a problem, Quinn, by the way. It would be beautiful if only flow was happening all the time, but we perfectly know it's not the case. What would you tell about that notion of corporate trauma? Because you came up with that terminology. It's not very well-known marketplace, but we coined it that way. What do we mean by corporate trauma?
Well, this is again in understanding human energy and all of this stuff. Like what we've just gone through is when everything's working properly. The ultimate result of all of those things working in harmony is flow. But there are blocks, and there are all sorts of blocks, and it's one's ability to identify the blocks and to overcome them as a challenge that allows for things to keep moving and keep flowing. And corporate trauma is one of these things that we touched on earlier, but it's like when a company grows too quickly, or if a company is acquired, or if there are mass layoffs, that directly impacts the energy of the organization, of the human beings working there. And if unacknowledged, it will cause all sorts of friction, all sorts of blockages. Just the way and again, just the way as individuals, as human beings, if we suffer trauma, it can impact how we show up at work, how we show up romantically, how we parent our children. It can go all the way to extremes of perhaps addiction, or an eating disorder. So we know as individuals what trauma, what energetic blocks can do. So why would we assume they were any different within the workplace?
And on that one, Quinn, I went through very recently a very massive transformation in my workplace. And the management, the leadership comes and say, listen, guys, we went through tough times and just swallow it. Now, the problem with just swallow it is that this is not what happens. In any meeting I had with my colleagues, the energy was low. I mean, there was no enthusiasm. And down to the point of disconnection, where there was a disbelief in what was going on, kind of, yet another transformation. Let's wait and see what happens. And we don't move. And people become stagnant. And that's the worst that can happen in an organization. A living organism is not meant to be stagnant. It's there to thrive. And those corporate trauma, when they're not acknowledged, and when we don't understand the dynamics of energy leakage that it represents, is actually undermining the trust, undermining the willingness to move, and the engagement within each of us, right? So I really experienced that firsthand over the last 12 months, and it's traumatic for sure. Oh, by the way, yes.
Can I push play?
Yeah, please. Science shows us how this works, and it's very interesting again. Cymatics is the science of vibration. And Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secret of the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. Now, What science will show you here is that while you pump up energy, in that case under the format of frequency, and you increase the frequency scale, you're moving up in terms of complexities. And you will see how this plays out with that metal plate, right? On which you put sand or some very metal line. And you will see that as we increase the tone, the frequency here, so increase the energy, right? You will start seeing shape, structure forming. Now imagine that the structure is the organization. An organization is not attached to a form. It has multiple forms. You believe maybe that it has a given form, but actually it doesn't. Depending on the system, on the element of the system, the coherence, the resonance, the energy you have, the more energy you put into the system, you can move to a higher frequency and a higher level of structure. What's fascinating here is that while you move from a given frequency to another one, the shape really appears clearly when you reach a certain frequency. It's as if there are plateaus of energy where the structure starts getting stable. Between the stable patterns, there is this type of vibrating sand moving around, as if it's a kind of chaotic transformation, right? And that's exactly what happens. You have an organization, the organization has a given pattern. It goes through merger and acquisitions or hypergrowth or layoffs, and it goes into chaos. And it requires some time in that chaotic phase to move to the next plateau. And you need to add energy into the system so that it starts stabilizing on a higher frequency, higher level of complexity. So again, what cymatics shows us is that vibration, sound impacts frequency, impacts materiality, reality, right? Energy is so important because it starts shaping the structure within an environment. And we need to be understanding that dynamics because that's what organizations are going through. Moving from one level of stable complexity to another one, moving through a phase of chaos, merger and acquisition, layoffs, you name it, reorganization or hypergrowth. And this has a clear energetic structure at the core. That's why it's so important to look at this cymatics from that perspective. Fascinating.
Conscious of time.
Mm-hmm. That's where I would say we don't talk about performance in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, which is the standard way of looking at performance. We believe that performance is human energy inflow. And more important than performance is how do you sustain performance? How do you keep that performance given the people you have, the structure you have, and how do you come to the highest possible sustainable performance? Because as we know, Quinn, looking at your body, maybe you're not able to sustain peak performance all the time. Do you?
Yes. Well, this is it's a story that you told me. The human body functions is at its absolute most highest capable performance at 41 degrees Celsius. So when we go into a fever, when we're sick, that is when the body is functioning at its absolute best, at its absolute peak. The enzymes are firing up, everything goes into overdrive, and like the human body is super powered. We feel awful, but the body itself is super powered. The thing is that we can sustain that for about 3 days and then we die. So similarly with work, why we would expect this sort of high level of performance out of people, and then them not to sort of fall off the edge at the end of it, was when we talk about sustained performance, we're talking about lasting performance. We're talking about the type of performance that just continues and increases and increases gradually and steadily, but in a very sustained and healthy way. And that comes from behavioral change. It doesn't come from just let's have a retreat or let's pump people up or let's incentivize with money. It comes from actual changing the collective behavior, and so that the whole team is feeding off of each other's energy in a very constructive way.
And that's where I guess to a certain extent, when we talk about that masterclass and talked about supercharge human energy, we are referring to this, the ability to find the resonance and the coherence Through human energy and purpose, you find the resonance. Through resonance and coherence, you find the flow. And the flow to the power n, with everyone involved, divided by the blocks, which are the corporate trauma and the inner friction, gives birth to this sustained performance, which is the highest level of performance you can reach in a state of flow. That's what sustained performance really is. And that's what any organization is striving to look for and to develop.
So at this point, we'd just like to quickly say that we have developed a way of measuring this. We've got a simple survey coupled with data science that allows us to measure the resonance and coherence of an organization or of a team, and allow us to see where those blocks are and where the flow is disrupted. So our giveaway to anyone, well, to the first 5 people we receive emails from, will be to run the key humanist indicators. This is usually a $5,000 process, which we're giving away to the first 5 people. And to those watching the recording, this recording will go out immediately, so you may or may not miss out on it. But we wanted to offer that as a way to be able to see what may or may not be happening within the teams. But the key takeaways as we come to a close here, we all have, Axel and I have different, shared and different things that we wanted people to walk away with. For me, partly it was about purpose, your purpose as an individual, and how aligned and in tune with it are you, and how aligned is that with the business's purpose? Is the business even aware of what its real purpose is? And can that alignment happen? The second thing I wanted to sow a seed on to those ready to hear it is that we are energy. Just because we don't see things it doesn't mean that they're not impacting us significantly. And what we wanted to show here is that not only is that a thing, but it's a thing that can be harnessed, and it's a thing that can be channeled. And through this process of human energy times purpose giving us resonance, through resonance and coherence equaling flow, through identifying blocks and looking at the numbers, we get to this sustained performance. And this is the formula for supercharging human energy over a period of time to generate that sustained performance. And just the flow sensing. I guess what we want to do as an organization is just to invite people to connect with their intuition. Start just listening in. If it feels wrong, it probably is. But if it just feels scary, that might be something worth incorporating into your hero's journey. So I don't actually think we have time today for Q&A. We've run out of time, Axel. But if there are anyone submits anything in the chat, we can come back to you. My email address is quinn@wearehumanness.com. Axel's is the same, but with Axel instead of Quinn. But thank you very much for anyone who's taken the time to join us today. Thank you very much for anyone who's watching the recording. It's been a real pleasure just to share some thinking with you. Axel, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you all, and looking forward to collaborating with you very time soon.
Thank you.